Alright, so you have a camera or accelerometer which is going to validate the deployment. Okay, this is the what was the fourth allocated mission requirement? GPS receiver and antenna. So you're going to say the derived mission requirements is going to be pretty simple here. You're going to say a GPS receiver. This is your the derived mission requirement is simply this. A low cost, you want a low cost GPS receiver, right? Because it's a academic or a student built satellite, you have a low cost GPS receiver and an antenna system for transmitting this or for receiving. Alright. What was the fourth this thing again? What is read the complete this? The allocated mission requirement number 4. And an antenna. Okay. So I'm just going to put this as low cost. What else is important? Anybody?
Accuracy.
Accuracy is important. Low cost. What is more critical?
Sensitive.
Do you really care for accuracy as much? Do you want really accurate GPS receiver?
No, sir.
You don't really need as accurate, right? If you're off by even a few meters, you're looking at hundreds, thousands of kilometers, right? If you're off by a few meters, it's okay. But what do you need? Low power consumption. Okay. So you need a low power GPS receiver.
Low cost and low power may not come together.
All consumption. Yes, sir.
It has to be designed.
Low cost, power.
It may go. Cost will go.
China one.
We will have a compromise.
So we'll just put it for the sake of, between them you have to figure out. The accuracy is not as important because the drag is not going to change if you're off by a little bit. In that region, if you get a good
Cost may not be a major problem. Power consumption may not be
will be more critical
more critical than cost.
than cost. Just take a note of what he said. Okay. So this, Ganesh, if you need anything, quote this. On record. Cost is not a problem.
No, you can pay, but power is lost. How do you get it? Will you put a battery there? Can you extend one more panel, solar panel?
Send second mission. Second after.
I'm just kidding. So, GPS receiver and antenna. Okay. So what you can do here is a nice project you can take up. Buy a GPS receiver, okay, and try to design an antenna for it. So if you combine, typically what you can do is, how do you compensate low power?
By effectively radiating the power.
Yes. So efficient antenna can to some extent compensate the low power or low reception. Right?
You receive whenever you require.
Right.
Since you are receiving only twice a day,
Right.
during that time you power it, take it, and then
No, but atmospheric throughout the mission it has to be.
okay, instead of doing it for
So every minute or every 5 minutes, 10 minutes we can do. Every minute I think would be, and we can figure out how to do the remainder. I'll talk. So when you want to, that actually is a good discussion to happen now. You may want the allocated mission requirement. In this case, I think I should have said a system which is going to give you orbital position, right? Not necessarily a GPS. Can you get orbital position any other way?
By solving the data from the
So what you can do is, there is actually, if you have to combine a low cost, low power GPS receiver antenna and orbit determination or propagation model. So what you can do is, you can implement a orbit propagation model where every minute you power on the GPS, and between those 2 minutes you propagate the whatever you have calculated or whatever you have measured. So you can, here you can, if you are into filter design, you know this Kalman filter, if you're trying to fuse a dynamic model and a dynamic model and a measurement model, this is a nice project to work on. Okay, you can pick a GPS receiver, you can pick a you can work on the antenna, and you can work on orbit determination or propagation model. So all this can be on board the satellite to give you the orbit position. Okay, this would be nice for it.
No, for that we need to get all the 6 elements.
You're propagating this, so you don't necessarily need the 6 elements. Generally, what we do is position and velocity. If you get it, you can calculate the 6 elements on ground. You can also do, even if you just send the position data, it's enough to
Position and then altitude.
that itself is altitude. So position will give you the altitude information. So if you have if you get the position and if the position at 3 time instances is known, you can get the orbital elements. Or if you know position and velocity, you can get the 6 orbital elements. Check. This is better. This is better? No. This is not. Still echoing. Check. 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 Hello? Check. Alright. So that's it. This is better? The other one was better? Check. Yeah, this is better. Okay?
Maybe that battery is.
Yeah, the battery is probably down. Low cost.
So maybe.
Alright, so let's look at this, okay? So we're looking at the low cost, low power GPS receiver and an antenna, and we'll go with orbit determination or propagation model, okay? So I'll just put this side. I don't think, I'll just try to talk like that. All right. So this is what we need. This is a derived mission requirement for. Now go back and change the allocated mission requirement to say a system for measuring the orbital position. Okay. So that orbital position would be a combination of these two. What is the next allocated mission requirement? A real-time clock. Did we capture that somewhere? No? The derived mission requirement again would be, now before we get to that, let's look at, so now think about this. Do we need to talk about the interface of this GPS receiver with the system? Is that part of an allocated mission requirement?
No, nowhere we have mentioned the
Right.
interfacing.
Right. So the interface, a system which will take this data and store it in the onboard. Did we mention that?
Yes.
System
from GPS into the system.
Right. So GPS receiver. When we talk about GPS receiver, we have to talk about antenna. We talk about receiver antenna. Here, let's not forget that we need something with I'm going to say a standard interface okay. So I'm just going to introduce this onboard computer here. You have to have a standard interface for the GPS receiver to the onboard computer or the system which is going to take this data and put it on the storage. Okay. And then we talk about the real-time clock with a standard interface. So the standard interface, what are the interfaces you are familiar with? You have RS-232. Everybody understands RS-232? Your USB is RS-232. Almost everything is RS-232. So you have I2C, SPI. All those are standard interfaces. Okay. So if you have just a note on, since we're talking about interfaces, understand this I2C and SPI interfaces are very popular and very useful. They have something called a master-slave configuration. Okay, on just a single line. What I mean is, on just 4 or 5 pins, you can have multiple components of those interfaces. And you should familiarize yourself with this I2C and SPI interface. It's a very wonderful interface. Okay. So if you're looking for something of this sort, the GPS receiver, you probably will look for a GPS receiver with an I2C or a SPI interface. A real-time clock, you're going to look at real-time clock with a I2C or a GPS interface, so that it can seamlessly interface with the onboard computer. Okay. What is the next one? Onboard storage. Okay. So here again, when I say onboard storage, we can think about a flash storage, okay, with a standard interface. Alright. What is the next one? A system for reading, right? So then now we're talking about, now let's have a discussion here, and I want input from the faculty. What kind of systems or what kind of processors are you comfortable with? What kind of systems or what kind of processors are you comfortable with? ARM-based processors. What specifically? Atmel, Atmega, Atmel, Atmega. What is used in an Arduino? Atmel 328, right? So you can here what I'll say is an Atmel 328 based light computer so here this is a again this is a project in itself, right? What are all the functions your onboard computer? This onboard computer, you use this acronym OBC, okay, for denoting the onboard computer. What are the functions you're looking at? Until now, what are the functions you're looking at? You're looking at
storage,
interfacing with. What is the first thing you're looking at interfacing with? Or the drag sensor suite. Okay, so this computer you want it to interface with the drag sensor suite. What else are you looking at?
GPS.
Let's go step by step. What is the next one?
Accelerometer.
The
Release.
before validating the deployment, right? You need to have a switch or a relay, right? Interface with deployment switch or relay. Okay, so this is what we need. What else do you need? So if you do these two, your drag sensor should be good, right? It is interfacing with drag sensor suite and it is interfacing with the deployment switch. So now you can see the hardware. This is the what kind of building block is this? So I talked about 3 building blocks. Remember, what are the first building block? Components, interfaces, and tasks. This is that interface building block. So interface always has a hardware side to it and a software side to it. Okay, so this interfacing with drag sensor suite, you're going to look at something like a analog or a digital interface, and you're going to look at writing a piece of code for getting the data, right? So you have both of that. or if it's just a simple analog, then you're just going to read that voltage and figure it out what the corresponding value is. That is the software side of it. Okay. What else do you need? Interface with the actuation is designed as a mechanism. Okay, so the mechanism is passive in the sense once that relays is triggered, the deployment will happen on its own. It's not actively, so we don't use any active form of deployment here. You understand? You understand the difference between active deployment and passive deployment?
Yes, sir.
Right? So this is a passive. Here what we are looking at is, right now it's a passive deployment. So a switch will trigger it and then the thing will be deployed. Okay. Next, interface with the accelerometer.
Digital thing related to deployment activation.
Deployment activation or deployment. So deployment activation is this.
Oh, sorry.
Deployment
validation.
validation. So we can say whatever sensor suite we want to use, we can say interface with
Validation.
deployment validation system.
There also in the B we can say instead of switch, deployment activation.
Deployment activation. Here we have interface with deployment validation system. So you see these, and I want the faculty to look at these and see how these are turning into small projects you can give to students. So you can take this up, you say do this, do this, do this. You can get 2 or 3 team members to do this, and this is, you can independently validate and do everything before you come and integrate. Okay. What else do you need? So you have interface with deployment validation system. You have validated. Interface with before you do this, before we go to GPS, we can say okay, interface with GPS receiver. What else? Interface with RTC, real-time clock. Everybody understands RTC?
Yes.
Okay. And then it has to also interface with, yes, interface with so I'm going to say transceiver, correct? So that way it has to interface with both the transmitter and the receiver. So that this is what transmitter and receiver are, again, passive systems in the sense they are not doing any decision making. They are just used as modulation and demodulation systems. The computer, the onboard computer, will read the data and give it to the transmitter so that the transmitter can push it out of the antenna. Okay, so it just needs a interface with transceiver. Anything else? There's one more item there. Look at that.
Power system.
Memory, storage. So interface with onboard storage. Okay.
Power system.
Power system. here, these are the. We'll talk about the power system in a bit. What we'll do is there anything the specific? Is there any other function you can think for the onboard computer? So in your heads, go into space. You know? Camera. Right. So we have to look at the secondary mission requirements. We are talking about the secondary mission requirements as well, right? So we are looking at right. So interface. So here, I want to talk about. Let me not number this. Okay. Let me call this as 9, and say. Let's look at the secondary. This thing. Okay. Or it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Place with the onboard storage.
Interface with okay. So this also means that we need a alright, so we need a system which is going to take pictures. Correct? Do you want to specifically define what camera you want? So design an onboard camera system with. So I'm going to just add filters to take a legible photograph of Earth and you want to take a legible photograph of SIT? Can you take a legible photograph of it?
No.
It's difficult, right? So let's say SIT.
Not only Earth, space, towards space.
Sure.
Because then it may not be legible. So that is why you can point in the other direction.
So we'll keep focus with our. They have to be objectives.
Anyway, we are going with dual camera.
No, we are not going with dual camera.
Not just
Right now, only one camera. We're going to be close on. Right now, let's keep the system. We are from old times. We believe in just having one camera for taking.
Yes, sir.
So here, I'm just going to say SIT. You never know, it's quite possible that one of you is going to come up with an excellent, brilliant camera which is going to actually take picture of SIT. One of you probably. So let's just go by this. Okay. So you need something which is going to. The onboard computer has to interface with this camera system. Okay. Now, looking at this again could be one project. Okay. So you
we
could.
can do it at the ground station just to get the signals. So the main person you can filter out.
Yes. So filter is in the physical. I'm talking about lens,
lens, aperture,
the
in that light.
yeah, if it saturates and all, you may want to take. That. But I agree with you. Like processing, we can do it once. So you can. So now, practically all your or an overview of all the allocated mission requirements. So you have the payload specific allocated mission requirements and the payload specific derived mission requirements are captured here. You see that? So you can go ahead and you can start talking about now in the allocated mission requirements we have a power system, right? So if we start talking about power system, what do we need? The first thing is solar cells for generating So solar cells for generating power for on-orbit operations, right? Now, the form factor of the satellite is not decided yet, right? Do you want to decide the form factor, or you want to just leave it as it is? What form factor do you want? Pico, nano, nano satellite. So what is the size you want?
Decide because
Right.
No,
So
for
let's.
anyway, payload has been decided.
Mhm.
That requires approximately pico.
Mhm.
But we would like to move to nano, then the cost will go up.
No, it won't go up as much as the launch cost. Here, see, we are going by the assumption that the launch cost would be borne by ISRO. We have to do that. Otherwise, we cannot bear the launch cost. Launch cost is generally little too much for any academic institution to do that. So, assuming the launch cost is going to be borne by ISRO, it is in our interest to design relatively not too small, but something which we can put our hands inside. Right? If you do a pico satellite, it's very difficult to assemble the satellite or put everything in that. So we don't have to decide a form factor, but somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 kg. So it is some between, I would say, between 2 kgs to 10 kg is what we need to look at. Okay. So in that range, the size could be up to 20 by 20 by 20. Okay. If you want to make it a CubeSat form factor, it could be 10 by 10 by 20 or 10 by 10 by 30. You can go up to 10 by 10 by 30. That is still qualified as a nanosatellite. If you want to make it non-CubeSat form factor, you could do a nice big cube of 20 by 20 by 20. You'll have everything nicely mounted and it will be easy to launch.
No, since we are using this brand,
Hmm.
we may require size in only one direction. Size in one direction. It may not be 20, 20.
So the satellite itself, the satellite structure before it is launched, it could be 20 by 20 by 20. But again, it's up to you. It's not limited. But I'm giving you an idea of where we want the satellite to be. It should be. Let's try to do a nano satellite, just because it is relatively easy to put together systems in a nano satellite. If we try to do a pico satellite, it will get challenging. Okay.
Okay, you're talking about the final. This is the final side what we're talking about.
Right.
So will not be. I don't know. Okay. When we start doing these small, bit by bit
Correct.
interfacings, so will you be aiming at the final stage, or do we have to do it in prototype 1, prototype 2, prototype 3? Maybe the fourth prototype is this level, or we are starting with this as our final dimension.
No, we don't limit our dimensions. So what we can do is we'll
Start with a bigger one. Have a confidence of maybe some interface of this.
Yes.
Then you scale it down.
Yes.
Scale it down.
Yes.
Maybe at the end of third year, you are through with this. Then.
yes. So when we do the engine,
Is that is the way how we are supposed to do, or are you asking us to just for this dimension you do it?
I think it'll work in our benefit because we are looking at a fast-paced mission. It'll work in our benefit if we decide this is a form factor we'll adopt, this is a size we'll adopt, and then work towards accommodating everything. Because that size will determine your solar cells. I'm worried about the solar cells. How much solar cells can you put on the sides? And that will determine how much power you can generate. And then you can figure out how much power, how can I distribute the power among the various systems, among the various components we're going to take up. For example, the drag shoe, how much power is it going to consume? The camera system, how much power is it going to consume? The GPS receiver, how much power is it going to consume? And accordingly, we can plan how much battery we can put in the, if this is the power it's going to generate, let's see how much battery I can put. So those things, this is critical. So that is the reason I'm going by experience. Strictly speaking, we could do this in as small as 10 by 10 by 20. What we are trying to suggest, what we are trying to prove, the camera would be really small. Okay, this drag sensor could be designed. Even if you take 10 by 10 by 5, half of 1 U CubeSat, the drag sensor should be able to fit in that. The other 1.5, you have the onboard computer, which will be one board. You have the transceiver, which will be another board, and the power distribution board, and the battery as well. So other 1.5, you can easily fit all these three plus the battery, and plus you can have some space for putting the camera, putting those connections. All that can be easily accommodated in 10 by 10 by 20. And
Is this task dependent or what? Like when we say picosatellite, it generates means it requires 2 watts.
Right.
So nanosatellite 20 watts.
right,
So is it based
it's
on the
not
task
requirement. It is actually what it can generate. So this is based on how many solar cells you can put on the surface.
maximum it will generate 2 watts per pico.
Yes.
So 2 watts has to be distributed among different subsystems to carry out the tasks.
No. The way we look at that is, if you have 2 watts, you have, let's say, a 10 watt-hour battery.
For example, our payload is drag zero.
Hmm.
How much power it requires?
It consumes, let's say, 1 watt.
So remaining 1 watt has to be distributed.
Not necessary. So that does not work that way. So what it is, it's like if you look at your cell phone, your GPS receiver on your cell phone consumes a lot of power, right? Your camera is going to consume a lot of power. Your screen, for example, if you keep your screen on all the time, it will die immediately. But you plan your tasks such that you distribute. From this time to this time, I'm going to keep the screen on. Power management has to be there. So what you need to do is, every time you charge the satellite completely, take it for a ride and measure the drag. Once the power is down, once the batteries are discharged during that orbit, go back to a mode where it is not consuming much power. Everything is switched off. Only bare minimum is working. So during that time, it is consuming, let's say, 0.5 watts, half a watt of power. You use that 1.5 watt, store it in the battery. Keep storing it in the battery. And once the battery generates 10 watt hour battery will run for, if your system is consuming, let's say if system is consumed, this track shoot, GPS receiver, camera is going to consume 5 watts, your mission payload is going to run for 2 hours. So you'll get 2 hours of data. And then you go back and start charging. So we'll plan it such that will duty cycle so 2 hours doesn't necessarily mean you can only consume 2 hours. You can consume more than that. Got it? So here, the solar cells, I'm just putting this number in your head that we can do this in 10 by 10 by 20. If you want to increase it, you could go 20 by 20 by 20. And this will be critical. When will this be critical? When we go to ISRO to get an okay for this mission, we have to tell them what is the size of this mission. What is the size of the satellite? Because they have to prepare a deployer which will deploy this satellite. You see that? So it's not critical now, but at least when we go and get an approval, we have to know what form factor we put it.
Now only we can go and then we can see what are the things that are
Sure. So let's go. Let's do complete this quickly. So you have solar cells for generating power for onboard operations. Then you have onboard battery for power storage. Okay. And then a electrical power regulation and distribution board. Plus, you need a charging system for the onboard battery. Okay. So between the solar cells and the onboard battery, you need a system which is going to regulate, which is going to charge use the right amount of power from the solar cells to charge the batteries. What else? I think see a UHF VHF transceiver for communicating the cells and mission data and taking inputs. So you need a UHF VHF transceiver which is going to send or downlink all of this data to SIT ground station, right? It needs to communicate the health of the satellite, plus it needs to communicate the mission data. The mission data here is the strain gauge data, essentially. Strain gauge, the GPS, the position data, camera pictures, okay? And then you need a antenna system which will transmit and receive, or an antenna system which will interface with the VHF transceiver. And the last but not the least, the system for storing and deploying the Any questions until now? So this is not an exhaustive list. We are actually missing one big system here. Can anybody point out and tell me what are we missing? Structure and thermal, right? Structure system. We need a structure chassis. What else are we missing? What do we need? PCB.
On which everything should be mounted.
Right. So each of these systems will be a PCB, but we are missing a major system in the sense we're missing. What are we missing? Not the cover. We're missing a stabilization system. So if you look at this system, once a satellite is launched, it's going to start spinning, right? It's not going to just be like this. It's going to do this. It's going to spin like this and then orbit, right? Now, if you want to measure drag, it has to be stable. It has to be it has to stabilize. Then it has to control itself, right? So you need a stabilization and control system. Okay, so we'll talk about that. What we can do is we can stop here today. Is this clear how it is breaking down?
Yes, sir.
Now what you should do is, I especially request faculty members to start carving out projects out of this. You actually see the projects here, start carving out projects, and even students, if you're interested, let's say, I'm interested to work on this, give me that work. That is how you should. Okay, you don't wait for the faculty members to come to you and say, please do this, you'll get credit and all that. Come forward and say, I'll do it, give me that job. Okay, only then we can get it done. You understand? You're going to do it?
Yes, sir.
Every one of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.